الدولية ليس مستغربا.
لا عم بصير 7 أياد بشكل آخر.
Good afternoon on this Saturday, May 10th. I'm Yumna Naufal and these are today's headlines. Lebanese forces leader Samir Jaja says he prefers a presidential vacuum over Hezbollah's rule, saying his ally in the March 14 alliance will not accept Michel Aoun as a candidate. The director of UNHCR's Middle East and North Africa Bureau says that the UN is discussing with Lebanese authorities the possibilities of setting up camps on the border. And shelling kills 11 people in the Iraqi city of Fallujah, which has been held by anti-government fighters for more than 4 months now. Lebanese forces leader Samir Jaja says he prefers a presidential vacuum over Hezbollah's rule, saying his ally in the March 14 alliance, former Prime Minister Saad Hariri, is not going to accept a deal to elect Free Patriotic Movement chief Michel Aoun as a consensual president in return for taking the helm of the new cabinet. In an interview with Pan-Arab daily Al-Sharq Al-Awsat, Jaja said, quote, "We would not have much options if there was a vacuum. We would either hold on to our stances or surrender the country to Hezbollah and its allies. Vacuum is much easier," he said, adding that he prefers to suffer from some difficult days rather than surrender Lebanon to Hezbollah. The LF chief, who is the only March 14 candidate for the elections, accused the Hezbollah-led March 8 alliance of causing a vacuum in the country's top Christian post. 7 inmates were wounded in overnight clashes in Rumi prison over a decision to move some of the prisoners to other cells. This is according to security sources who spoke to the Daily Star, adding that riot was contained by this morning. The inmates burned a mattress and attacked wardens in Block B of Lebanon's largest facility, clashing with police for several hours. The prisoners also attempted to break the door of their jail cells, which prompted police to open fire in the air. And they said that the inmates' wounds were light and there was no need to transport them to hospital. Now, riots in Urumqi are frequent, with prisoners sometimes demanding an end to worsening prison conditions, general amnesty, and speed in legal procedures. In other local news, the army says that it arrested a man in the northern district of Akkad after finding thousands of light armed bullets in his vehicle. The army unit seized around 6,600 bullets for light weapons from the Toyota van of Rabi' Abdel Karim Yunus in Hnaydar in Akkad. This is according to the military, who released this in their communique, and they said that the arrest was made around 6:15 a.m. this morning. He was referred to the appropriate authorities to take action against him. In other news, the director of UNHCR's Middle East and North Africa Bureau says that the UN is discussing with Lebanese authorities the possibility of setting up camps for Syrian refugees in Lebanon. Nahar Daily quoted Amin Awad as saying that the proposal calls for establishing the camps in Lebanese territories away from the border with Syria and the dividing lines between the warring sides to limit the presence of refugees in several locations. Those camps will preserve their safety and help organizations deliver aid more easily to them, according to Awad, who is heading the UN Refugee Agency Syria Response. He said there should be an international strategy to support the Lebanese state and the different organizations from donor countries, adding that it is up to the Lebanese authorities to specify the locations of the camps. Just to remind you, more than 1 million Syrians have registered as refugees in Lebanon after fleeing war in their countries. Hundreds of Syrians streamed back into the devastated old city of Homs, picking through the ruins of their homes after a deal that evacuated rebels from the area. They walked, rode bicycles and motorbikes, and pushed strollers down streets strewn with rubble. Every building bore signs of the conflict, from bullet holes to enormous craters created by the shells that struck almost daily during a nearly 2-year siege. Many were visibly emotional at the sight of their former neighborhoods, now rendered almost unrecognizable. Dozens of families are doing the same, gathering the clothes and keepsakes that could be salvaged from homes destroyed in the conflict. A final convoy of rebels withdrew from the old city yesterday, handing control of all but one district of Homs to the government under a deal negotiated between the regime and opposition forces. A top UN aid official, frustrated by obstacles to humanitarian aid in Syria, asked if 1 million people did need to be killed, and neighboring states needed to collapse before the world actually takes action to stop the conflict in Syria. John Ging, the Director of Operations at the UN Office for Coordination in Humanitarian Affairs, said the humanitarian crisis is getting even worse, with almost now 2.8 million refugees in neighboring states and 6.5 million displaced in Syria. Over 3.5 million people are in areas where aid is blocked or hindered, and another 240,000 are under siege, he said. Moreover, Damascus is a deliberate strategy of denying medical care to the wounded by removing anything that could be used as medical supplies from convoys, he added, calling this an abomination, indescribably unacceptable in 2014. Coming up next, TCL Chinese Theater IMAX unveils the latest visitor to their forecourt, and his name is Godzilla. Stay with us. Welcome back. You're watching Future TV. Shelling kills 11 people in the Iraqi city of Fallujah, which has been held by anti-government fighters for more than 4 months now. A further 20 people were wounded by the bombardment, according to Dr. Ahmed Shami of Fallujah's main hospital. The latest casualties come a day after Iraqi forces launched an operation to retake areas near the city, which lies just a short drive west of Baghdad, in preparation for an eventual assault. But such an assault is unlikely to occur soon, as security forces have struggled all year to regain territory in Anbar province from militants, and they would face a major challenge to recapture the city without causing civilian casualties and significant damage to infrastructure. U.S. Defense Secretary Chuck Hagel is to fly to Saudi Arabia, Jordan, and Israel next week for talks that are expected to focus on Iran's nuclear program and Syria's civil war. The tour is part of an effort to work in a coordinated manner with allies and partners across the region to address common security challenges. U.S. officials have struggled to reassure Gulf states, particularly Saudi Arabia, over an interim nuclear deal with Iran that the Saudis worry will embolden Tehran. The Gulf governments have also been dissatisfied with Washington's cautious approach to arming rebels forces in Syria. The meeting will offer a chance for Hagel to underscore U.S. security commitments in the Middle East and to reinforce the United States' unstinting policy of preventing Iran from acquiring a nuclear weapon and further destabilizing the region. The United Nations Security Council is calling for Nigeria's Boko Haram to be held accountable for what may amount to crimes against humanity and hinted at sanctions against the Islamist extremists. The statement, approved by all 15 council members, is the strongest by the UN's most powerful body on the recent attacks in Nigeria, and in particular on Boko Haram's abduction of 276 schoolgirls on the 14th of April and another 8 on May the 5th. This comes as the military says Amnesty is claiming that it knew Boko Haram would attack Chibok School, where girls were abducted, and they're saying this is unfounded. Amnesty said on Friday it was told that security forces were given 4 hours notice of the April 14 attack, but failed to reinforce the town. And the mass kidnappings of these schoolgirls in Nigeria is an unconscionable act of terror against the education of girls, according to the United States First Lady Michelle Obama. Speaking in her husband's place during President Barack Obama's weekly morning address, Michelle said that this violence is not an isolated incident. It is a story that they see every day as girls around the world risk their lives to pursue their ambitions.
I also want to speak to you about an issue of great significance to me as First Lady, and more importantly, as the mother of 2 young daughters. Like millions of people across the globe, my husband and I are outraged and heartbroken over the kidnapping of more than 200 Nigerian girls from their school dormitory in the middle of the night. This unconscionable act was committed by a terrorist group determined to keep these girls from getting an education. Grown men attempting to snuff out the aspirations of young girls. And I want you to know that Barack has directed our government to do everything possible to support the Nigerian government's efforts to find these girls and bring them home. In these girls, Barack and I see our own daughters. We see their hopes and their dreams. And we can only imagine the anguish their parents are feeling right now. Many of them may have been hesitant to send their daughters off to school, fearing that harm might come their way. But they took that risk because they believed in their daughter's promise and wanted to give them every opportunity to succeed. The girls themselves also knew full well the dangers they might encounter. Their school had recently been closed due to terrorist threats, but these girls still insisted on returning to take their exams. They were so determined to move to the next level of their education, so determined to one day build careers of their own and make their families and communities proud. So I hope the story of these Nigerian girls will serve as an inspiration for every girl and boy in this country. I hope that any young people in America who take school for granted, any young people who are slacking off or thinking about dropping out, I hope they will learn the story of these girls and recommit themselves to their education. These girls embody the best hope for the future of our world, and we are committed to standing up for them not just in times of tragedy or crisis, but for the long haul. We are committed to giving them the opportunities they deserve to fulfill every last bit of their God-given potential. So today, let us all pray for their safe return. Let us hold their families in our hearts during this very difficult time. And let us show just a fraction of their courage in fighting to give every girl on this planet the education that is her birthright.
South Sudan's two rival leaders have signed a ceasefire deal following international pressure to avert famine and genocide. President Salva Kiir and rebel chief Riek Machar met face-to-face on Friday in the Ethiopian capital of Addis Ababa for the first time since mass violence broke out in December. After a signing ceremony in the city's presidential palace, Kiir said that they have come to their senses, dialogue being the only answer to whatever problem they had. He said that they would continue to move in the right direction. The White House National Security Advisor Susan Rice welcomed the development. In a statement issued on Friday, she said that fighting in South Sudan had robbed the country of hope and denied its people the peace and prosperity they deserved. The Vatican says it will beatify the late Pope Paul V on October 19th, following the Catholic Church's recognition of a supposed miracle attributed to him, which will leave him one step from sainthood. The apparent miracle identified by the Vatican's Congregation for the Causes of Saints is the healing of a fetus from an otherwise incurable illness. Italian Giovanni Mitini reigned between 1963 and 1978 and presided over reforms from the Second Vatican Council, which aimed to modernize Catholicism. He is praised for his efforts to seek closer ties with other Christian denominations, but his 1968 encyclical Humanae Vitae was controversial for spelling out a ban on all forms of artificial contraception. The Catholic Church procedures require one miracle attributed for beatification, which confers the status of blessed, and two miracles for canonization to join the ranks of saints. Finally, the TCL Chinese Theater IMAX in Hollywood unveiled the latest visitor to their forecourt, and its name is Godzilla. The 20-foot statue has been erected to celebrate the coming release of the film, and we're better to put the biggest lizard in the world than in front of the biggest IMAX in the world. The statue will be terrifying locals until the May 19th, 2014, where it will be relocated. The highly anticipated film has drawn huge attention, and tickets are selling fast. One of the organizers said, so we just recently put tickets on sale, and we have more advance tickets sold for this movie than any other movie in the history of the TCL Chinese Theater IMAX. So if you haven't gotten your ticket, you better buy it today because it may not be here tomorrow. Godzilla opens in Beirut theaters on May 15th, so make sure you get your tickets too. And on this note, I'm going to end our bulletin for today. Lebanese Forces leader Samir Jaja says he prefers a presidential vacuum over Hezbollah's rule. The director of the UNHCR's Middle East and North Africa Bureau says the UN is discussing with authorities the possibility of setting up camps for Syrian refugees on the border. And shelling kills 11 people in the Iraqi city of Fallujah, which has been held by anti-government fighters for more than 4 months now. This wraps up this Saturday's headlines live from Future Television. I'm Yumna Naufal, wishing you all a good weekend.
الغياب ليس مستغربا.
اللي عم بصير 7 أياد بشكل آخر.